I think one thing, that this is a fairly, let's say, obvious thing. Some of these hoteliers probably could list their rooms on these sites, which actually can be a cheap way of distributing, because OTAs could end up costing quite a bit more. Now that's just one thing. Obviously, a lot of the hotel brands nowadays, let's say, that are trying to appeal to millennials and so on, I'd say the trend there is to get out of the room and into the lobby. In other words, the millennial traveler, the young traveler, doesn't want to sit in his room alone, drinking or whatever, or operating his computer. He wants to come down to the lobby, and I think this is a major trend in the hotel industry. Now, with regard to millennials, and this apartment rental, what the apartment rental offers is particularly appealing to millennials, which was referred to by Arnaud Bertrand, is this authenticity. In other words, when a traveler goes into a short-term rental, often he or she is staying in the apartment of the owner, is living like a local, and gets to go to the local shops and this kind of thing, and this is what I think a lot of the younger travelers are and this is one of the key points, besides the actual freedom of having a large room at a cheap price, or an apartment at a cheap price. It's not only that, but it's also this authenticity and this idea that you can live like a local when you go into these rentals. There's always a risk, obviously, because, to be honest, the controls of these apartment rental rent sites are not great. They cannot possibly control. In other words, if you take House Trip, they have 250,000, 300,000 units listed. They haven't even seen all of these personally. Okay, maybe they look at photos or something like this, but you are running a risk. Now, some of the websites actually have a way for the owners to give a sort of TripAdvisor, let's say, account of what people did when they stayed in the apartment, and how satisfied the owners were. So it's not only a question of how satisfied were the guests, but the owners also, in some cases, have a chance to react. And so that's somewhat of a defense, let's say, for the owners. But that's clearly a risk. I mean, and I think and the other way around, it's a risk for the people that go into the rentals, and that's why the hotels still have an advantage, because there's much more of a guarantee of service delivery. Now, what I mentioned about Airbnb at the beginning of the session is Airbnb has hired one of the top innovator hoteliers in the U.S., Chip Conley, who founded one of the original boutique hotel chains back in the 80s in California, to standardize the product of Airbnb. So they're addressing that issue. Now, in the case of House Trip, which was founded by one of my former students when I was teaching in the École Hôtelière de Lausanne, he already comes out of the hotel industry, so I think he has an advantage, actually, from that point of view. The sector that is probably feeling the heat the most from these websites are urban hotels in major destinations, probably in the 2 to 3 star category, and perhaps even hostel chains. Now, this is something that people have not really talked about, but I think in Vienna, for instance, you have Wombat, right? And you have Generator, and you have Meininger. So these are chains. Now, I would think that those would be some of the most hit by this phenomenon. But of course, they're doing very well for the time being. They're very small, but that's the customer base. They're basically addressing the same customer base.